Everyone ready? Alrighty, let's call the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets meeting to order of August 8th, 2023. Roll call.
Marshall here.
Guzikowski here.
Zarnecki here.
Seifert here. Segali here.
Approval of minutes from 7/11/23.
Marshall moved to approve the minutes of July 11th, 2023.
Segali seconds.
Roll call.
Marshall, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye.
Segali aye.
Review of the Common Council related public works and capital assets.
Yeah, I'll take this, Chris.
All right.
There was really nothing on the agenda or anything that was approved that would pertain to this group or anything to be discussed, so.
Alrighty, this, number 5. Consider a motion to approve the utility engineer to enter into professional service agreement for Clark Dietz at the amount of not to exceed $75,000.
We thank you. As we've gotten through our investigation and we're getting closer on getting the plans developed, they're probably maybe 75, 80% complete. What we found is the integration of the existing work, replacement of the air handler and the duct also relates to the boiler that we're not replacing the boiler, we're not doing anything with it. So the plan was don't touch the boiler room, but the reality is all the controls for the boiler go into the controls for the HVAC system overall. That needs to be looked at. And then come to find out that a bunch of the side radiators, I'll call them radiators, the heaters that are on the walls on the side of the treatment plant, also in the vestibule, in the control room that we're reusing, none of the pneumatic thermostats work on those any longer. They've been severed or have been buried over the years through different projects, or just simply aren't functioning any longer. That needs to be tied in or we're not going to have a successful project when we get done with this. So what we're doing now is we're sort of taking a bit of a pause, and we want to go back and investigate that and have Clark Dietz complete that work. This contract also includes, which was not included before intentionally, the construction work that Clark Dietz would do on the project. So they would review all of the shop drawings that came in. They would do inspection on the work on an as-needed basis. That's now included in this as well. So it's a bit of a we have more to do, and also adding some work. Project estimate is at the moment hovering right around $500,000, which is seemingly, it's gut wrenching. It's seemingly very expensive to heat and cool relatively. It's a large space, but a relatively small space. Not a lot of people work in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the lead time on the equipment. So we've anticipated construction at this point in late 2024, October 2024, because there's a 26-week lead time on all the equipment. So by the time we get to order it, if the project estimate goes above $475,000, we'll have to go to the Public Service Commission for permission to do the project for construction authorization. So that's something we've got a keen eye on as well. It appears at this point, most likely, it will be on top of that number. So we are going to have to go to the Public Service Commission. Not well. Yeah, so most of the heaters on the sidewalls are just on 100%, which is the issue. They can't modulate at all. So in the front vestibule, it'll get very hot in there in the summertime, or in the wintertime rather, so we just prop the doors open, put a couple fans out there to try and move that air out. In the lunchroom, what they do is they'll turn off that radiator that's in that room in order to try and keep it cool during the wintertime, cooler anyhow, so somebody will turn it on when it gets a little cold, then they'll turn it off. It's just not a great process. The other piece we found out is on our lab. Our lab needs to be kept at a certain temperature, And with replacing this HVAC equipment, there's no backup, there's no redundancy to that piece. So we're adding a mini split in that room as well, just to provide in case we just had the air conditioning go out, so in case it goes out again, we have the boiler goes out often. The boiler goes out a fair amount, and the boiler's primary purpose is to provide heated water for the dehumidification equipment. We sort of siphon off of that, or we bleed off of that hot water to heat the rest of the building. So its primary purpose is dehumidification. But like I said, it's been off numerous times, and then we start impacting what we're supposed to be keeping the temperature in the lab. So we need to fix that as well. Computer room, same thing. We need to add additional heating and cooling in there in order to account for all the computers that have just been added over the years. Yeah, it's kind of a big redo, if you will. It's a big change. The air handling equipment is from 1974, so we are worried about some asbestos on the ductwork. That's not been tested yet. That's something we're going to look at. But that air handling equipment is just, the technology is old. It is old, and we can't get parts for it. So it's a big project. Right. Right. Yes, I agree.
Well, it seems like we need to, necessary evil, right? Any other questions or comments? Motion?
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Marshall, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye.
Scully, aye.
All righty.
Kind of affects us all.
Consider
It affects us
a
all,
motion
so-
to approve the progress payments on number 3 for Susan Drive Relay, Water Relay Product to Globe Contractors.
Yeah, so this is an ongoing progress payment. It's number 3 for $15,125. The project is nearly complete. The issue, they actually went through it fairly quickly. The restoration, the asphalt restoration was done pretty decent timing, but then the contract has paused, and we've not got the grass restoration done. And in part, because the hydrants that were delivered did not have stainless steel shafts, operating shafts in them, which is what was specified due to our corrosion around here. The supplier is replacing those. Oddly, they replaced the top shaft, but didn't replace the bottom shaft. So now they have to come back and rip all that out and replace the bottom shaft again. We don't know what's going on with that. But the supplier's kind of dragging their feet a little bit. So we are on them to try and keep that going. This is not really on the contractor. It's not exactly their fault, but it's just something we're monitoring. So it's taking a little bit longer. The work is complete. The water main is on. The people are served by the new water main. So
That's what counts. Any questions or comments, anyone?
Contract on budget. I mean,
it is.
coming in. Okay.
Yes, yes. There were a couple of change orders to it, but it should be still right on budget. So we're happy with that.
Motion?
Zarnecki will make a motion to approve progress payment number 3 for the Susan Drive Water Relay Project to Globe Contractors in the amount of $15,125.
Scully will second.
Roll call.
Marshall, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye.
Scully, aye.
All righty. Consider a motion to approve the progress payment number 4 for Howell Avenue Water Relay.
So this is a larger payment consistent with this project. It's $304,180.17. It's, again, a typical progress payment for this contractor. They are still working on it. The plan is still to have the project done by the end of August. They have shifted traffic over where we've been working over the last week or so, 2 weeks, on the connections. The new water main is in. We're just making connections to that now. So we had to go connections across what we would call the fast lane, the northbound fast lane. That's been mostly done. They're working on the south end now around Groveland, tying that in. That should be completed, and then they'll work next week on removing or abandoning the hydrants that are no longer needed from the old main. So that is progressing fairly well. As anticipated, when we started this project, it was going to be completed in August, and that's what we're still shooting for. So looks to be on track.
Good to hear it's on track. Any questions or comments, anyone? Not a motion.
Marshall will move to approve the progress payment number 4 for the Howell Avenue Water Relay Project to A.W. Oaks and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $304,180.17.
Zarnecki will second.
Roll call.
Marshall, I.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye.
Scully, aye.
Number 8, consider a motion to approve change order number 1 for BSNA for financial software and amend capital budget by $14,000.
I'll take that one. Thank you. My name is Max Gagan, Assistant City Administrator and Comptroller, for those of you that don't know me. So before you today, change order with BSNA, who is the financial software provider that is converting from the utilities current system, MSI, over to the city, the system that the city also utilizes. So back in June of 2022, the board did review a contract and did award it at that time. And as we've gone through the discovery process, one of the things we've come to realize is that the original agreement was drafted such that the utility would be on the BSNA platform, but essentially operating as a separate entity outside of the city. So there was no integration between the payroll, the accounts payable, general ledger parts. So what this change order is one, it's recognizing that the city already pays for some of these modules, but then there's also a large chunk for the actual conversion into the city's databases. So I'm happy to go through it in great detail, but the largest cost is about $30,000, and that is to convert the payroll database into the cities. You know, we've looked at it internally. It's much higher than we anticipated, but from the vendor's perspective, there's a lot of risk in this because they're essentially trying to convert into an active database. So the amount of testing that they're requiring us to do in order to make it work, because essentially, usually when you're converting from one system to the next, you're converting in a vacuum and then you bring it up live. Whereas here, they have to essentially take down the city database, merge in the utility data, and bring it back up. And that's occurring from a Friday night into a Monday. So, you know, if things don't go right, then the city as a whole, from everything from cash receipting to building permits, will be down. So stakes are pretty high. That's why they're asking for this additional cost. So with that, happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Nothing for me. Any comments or concerns? Motion?
Marshall will move to approve the change order number 1 with BSNA for financial software and amend the capital budget by $14,812 for water and $6,348 for sewer.
Roll call.
Marshall, I.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye.
Scully, aye.
Alrighty, number 9. Consider a motion to approve utility vouchers for payment of $1 million. Any comments or questions, anyone?
Wisely, man.
No? If nothing, motion?
Zarnecki will make a motion to approve utility vouchers for payment in the amount of $1,098,348.36.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Marshall, I.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye.
Scully, aye.
Alrighty. Number 10, administrative
I only have a couple little things. The water, as you can see, water sales is up again year-to-date both, and with the change in the average, 5-year average. I've noted on the industrial side, Crothall Laundry and Stella & Chewy's is the significant part of it. Of course, Wayne Energies is up, but the other two are up pretty significantly, making a large part of that. Residential was up 4.7%, and the rest of commercial was up 4.5%. So just general water sales increase there, although we'll talk about some more of that when we get to the plant. On the engineering report, the only thing I wanted to highlight there is the 13th Street hydrant relocation coming up for next year in order to get ahead of the county road project there. The estimate came in on that. We've got 10 hydrants to move, a little bit of water main offset to do in that, so it's not just purely 10 hydrants, but it's $400,000 to move 10 hydrants. So this is impactful, and we don't really get a whole lot out of it, but it just sort of is what it is. That just highlights the costs of today. That's what we've got nowadays. I wanted to mention the East Forest Hill water main project. There's a small chunk, it's about 600 feet of water main that's going to be replaced in East Forest Hill from Howell Avenue East. So when the Howell Avenue project completes, another contractor is going to come in and start on Forest Hill. So we'll still have barrels out there in that area for a little while longer. Lastly, Diggers Hotline hit a peak here of 1,000 tickets both in June and July. That's the highest we've ever had. Everything and anything.
Both.
Yeah, everything and anything. People are calling all over the place. I would say there's probably more of the development type work that's being done, any kind of fiber that's being done. We've had a lot of that's come through as well. Distribution side, we've had a couple of water main breaks. One of them was broke during flushing, and 2 more were right over here on Burrell. As a result of us working on the Howell Water project, we've dead-ended some main that caused some different stresses in the pipe, caused a water main break. As we repaired the break, that caused another break, as often happens on the corroded mains that we have in some of that area. Lastly, on the bottom there, it says 9 hydrants out of service. Actually, at this point, there's 3 to 4 that are out. We'll find hydrants as a result of our flushing program, and then we'll get on those right away and get those taken care of, so that number's not quite as high. Lastly, on the plant operations, of course, everything is up. The percentages are all higher. The monthly peak day that happened on July 18th at 12,600,000, that happened to be the exact same day we had a water main break. So a lot of that actually came from the water main break. It was a large break on Logan, but it just sort of highlights how these numbers can be skewed slightly by some of the other activities going on. And that's it.
The other item on there is just the Water and Sewer Utilities 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and Audit Results. Certainly happy to walk you guys through those if you wish. I can certainly give you some highlights. The utilities in a very strong financial position. Overall assets, $168 million, and of that, about $37 million worth of cash. So pretty significant there. Of that, about $34 million unrestricted. So we do have very significant cash reserves. Part of that being intentional because we do have a large chlorine contact tank project at the treatment plant in the future. So our hope is that we can utilize some cash, minimize our debt, especially with interest rates rising. But other things you'll see within there is that total net position increased about 3%. Unrestricted net position increased about 15%. So again, very strong. And that's without any type of water rate adjustments for the last 5+ years. So utilities is in a very strong position. And what we're seeing now is that with our cash and where interest rates are heading, earning significant interest earnings, which very fortunate that the utility doesn't have to budget that to meet its operating or capital expenses. So for the first 6 months of the year, earned almost $850,000 worth of interest, all of that unbudgeted. So that's going to be great for next year. Makes the rate of return look awesome. So, rate of return was 9.4% last year. So, which
That's
no,
it's too high.
Yeah, no, we understand it's a little high right now. But again, with this large project, hoping we can utilize cash more so than having to go see some like clean And then on the audit report, so those are the results of the audit. What you'll see is that overall, unmodified opinion, which is excellent. Otherwise, we do report a material weakness for the financial close process. So essentially what that means is that the auditors do prepare the utilities financial statements. And that's pretty common in governmental agencies, and especially with Oak Creek. It's really myself, our assistant comptroller, Christina, and then my accountant, Rory, doing both the city and utilities finances. So really don't have that second independent review of those financial statements. But otherwise, we did have a few adjusting journal entries, but nothing that was really material in nature. Certainly for Christina and myself, our first time doing the utilities audit, a lot of challenges, certainly just trying to figure out where the information was. But once we were able to kind of recreate some of the history, we were able to make it work. Feel really confident moving into next year, being that it'll be year 2, that it'll be a little bit smoother. But overall, I thought it went really well, and you guys should feel really confident in where the utilities financial position is. It's very strong.
Any other comments or questions?
I guess it's not necessarily related 100% to the audit, but it was in there. So there was something about pollution remediation that the water utility has a liability for. Is there, if you're at liberty to discuss that, like, is there any prognosis for when that liability may go away, when you're going to have to do any remediation?
It was discovered when we were designing the last chlorine contact tank project. It was on property north of, which is now city property, was property north of the treatment plant. We know where it's related to, but can't tie it to any other responsible party, so that leaves us in the lurch. The plan was it was going to be right over the top of, or right underneath a future pump station. That was all unclassified soils or non-structural soils anyhow, so we were going to remove it at that time. At this point, we don't know what's going to be there, but we know that liability still exists. We do have money for it, so the plan is when we do the major construction project that the plant will take care of it at that time.
Okay. I guess the only other question I would have is, obviously I would agree, it seems like you guys are in a very strong financial position, but it seems like there's that looming 24 wholesale agreement that's going to lapse. Has there been any negotiations further with Franklin, or where does that sit if you're, again,
have-
at liberty to discuss?
We have discussed with Franklin a bit. We've had a meeting with Franklin. I think it's going in a positive direction.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Good questions. Any comments or other questions?
Can we elaborate on that? Does that mean that the new, nope? Okay.
I mean, we can't really get into the negotiations of it. That is something that we had talked about, having a closed session item with the board so they can be more up to date. I think that's something that needs to, it won't happen in September, so perhaps in October we can do that. Yeah, we've been looking to do that. This year, we actually had talked about it, Andrew and I talked about it at the tail end of last year, of doing it earlier this year, and then we're, sort of waiting for a few things to happen, and now I think is a good time.
As Mike said, having been a participant in that meeting, I would just share that, the new administration for the city of Franklin, their mayor and director of administration, is really taking this issue head on, and sees the importance of it, and would like to get resolution from your board of water commissioners sooner rather than later, hopefully by the end of the year. And I'd be remiss if I didn't really thank my assistant comptroller, Christina Stremczak. She's really done a lot of the heavy lifting, working over at the utility 2 days a week starting in September. And then that's sometimes turned into 5 days a week, depending on the year or the time of year. But certainly we're very ecstatic for the work she did, and continues to do. And now we're just looking to kind of figure out what's the next steps to have it be a functioning finance department that includes the utility.
Any other comments or questions? Number 11, consider a motion to approve the installation of no parking signs on West Oakview Parkway.
Good morning, Matt Sullivan, city engineer. So the request before you came from the management of Stella and Shoe's. This kind of originated in December of 2021, beginning of 2022. Engineering department has been trying to work with them to establish some grounds and quite honestly to try to promote them to have their own staff park in their parking lot that they expanded with some of their additions onto their existing facility there. They did make some attempts. They placed flyers. They had some meetings, encouraged their employees to park there. It did occasionally work for a few days. We'll admit that. But then as they continue to ask their staff why they continue to park in front of the building, two clear answers were, it's closer and it's not against the law. So we decided to look back on the history of accidents in that area. Granted, it's very short term, but what we've noticed is that there have been several. Most of them are either semis coming with their parked vehicles, tail end catching them. One was an impaired driver that hit a parked car there. So there's been, I wouldn't say, 3 on average per year, but, it continues to rise as what we're seeing throughout the years. The addition of Global Schoolwear, that was just built in the northwest quadrant of that area, that's going to increase the traffic through there. So there are some concerns with vision, people parking on both sides. So we're kind of bringing this forward finally in hopes that we can get some kind of resolution to it and work with the property owners out there. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer those for you. We're recommending that it be installed. That's correct. Both their safety and their facilities manager. Yeah, there's it'll fix a number of, issues that might be present out there. The biggest one is when both sides are parked. I don't know if you've driven through there, but if you drive there, midday, both sides are generally parked from almost Elm Road down past their property, with not only semis, but we've been seeing a lot of vehicular parking there. So it is, they have ample parking in their parking lot. This would just force that to be pushed to that parking lot for them. It's gonna be about the same amount of walking at that distance. So it would defeat the point of their, yes, they are.
Want to have any questions on this or comments? Not.
No, we really honestly did not reach out. I think this is a point of, they have their own parking. They're not at full, they're probably not up to full employees yet, but the parking lot is probably 75% full from what I've seen when I've driven through there at times. Yeah, that'll be an improvement.
Anyone, if no one has any questions, let's make a motion.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Marshall, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye?
Scully, aye.
Have anything else? So we got time to adjourn.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Marshall, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Zarnecki, aye?